In 1981, early August, family Leisolas arrived in Switzerland. We lived outside Zurich in a small village having 150 inhabitants altogether, so you can think that a family of 5 was more or less experience for that village. It was a very, very nice small village, and a small school there had altogether 5 classes. And when people ask me how many children I have, I often mention that 15% of the school kids are mine. That showed how small the school was. My wife was happy when he could see through the kitchen window directly the schoolroom. It was not easy in the beginning. I had given up my job, my flat, my furniture, everything, and moved to Switzerland. And when we arrived, we had a house rented. Our kids went to school, but we didn't have a work permit. And the official said to us that you actually shouldn't be living here. You can only come as a tourist for 3 months. And the time was running, no work permit. I told the situation to my boss, Professor Fichter, who lived in the same village actually as we, and he started to get worried, and he said that maybe you should move to Germany for a while. And I was really worried and thinking, what had I done? I had given everything up in Finland, come to Switzerland, and now it seems that we don't have a place here. And I was reading Bible and praying, and one morning in Romans 4, when Paul talks about Abraham, who he patiently waited and God's promise was fulfilled, I felt that God was speaking to me through this Bible verse, that take it easy, I am with you. And a few days later the work permit came from Bern and everything was settled. As a newcomer in the Institute of Microbiology, actually it was now the Institute of Biotechnology, and as a newcomer I was invited to have a small seminar about what I had been doing in Finland. And so I was thinking, what on earth do I say in this seminar? And again my friend, the same friend who had encouraged me to invite my professor for Bible study, said to me that let go, make it clear who you are, what you think, what is important to you. And I thought, okay, I do that. And I had a seminar about molecular biology, which I was doing a little bit in Finland, about criticism of Darwinian theories of origin of life, and then I added some basic thoughts about Christian philosophy. After my seminar, my professor obviously was angry. He left the room, slammed the door without saying a word. Next day he came to me and said, Professor Leisolas, we had a problem yesterday. In our seminar we only speak facts, no philosophies. And I said, I'm sorry, I do better in the future, although I was thinking in my head that that is your philosophy, the idea that every man has a philosophy or a basic view of life was quite clear to me. Later, many years later, I talked with the head of the biological faculty, and this Professor Winterhalter told me that, Professor Leisolas, you are a very religious man. I said to him that, Professor, you are also. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, every man starts with basic concepts and philosophies that he can never really prove and through these philosophies he looks at this world. He was thinking for a while and said to me then that you are right, this is right. All of us have our philosophies or religious views, if you like, that way. Anyway, after the seminar, 2 of the Institute scientists came to me and wanted to understand more. I especially want to mention here my good friend Dr. Isaac Lorenzes, who was coming from Mexico doing his doctoral work at that time in the Institute. He wanted to be with me and talk more about the information problem. And he said to me that if it is really true that information is the key to biology, we should in principle be able to know the information source. And I said, exactly, that is right. And we started to talk. I shared my Christian faith with him, and I told that you can have a personal relationship to God, which was strange to him as a Catholic from Mexico. But he received Christ, his life was changed. Later his wife became a Christian. She was also doing the doctoral thesis about yeast metabolism in the Institute. And they joined our Bible study groups. When Isaac then wrote his doctoral thesis, he saw my dedication in my work, which I already mentioned, that I dedicated my thesis to God. Isaac wanted to do better. He chose a Bible verse that says that thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are and are created. Then he had this Bible verse translated in 7 different languages, including Finnish and Hebrew, as dedicated in his doctoral thesis. And in acknowledgement he mentions that I am thankful to Dr. Leisolas for the interesting seminar, which had little of plasmids but a lot of exciting concepts like source of biological information, intelligence before biology, language of God, and so on. It brought me to question, fortunately, my traditional and dogmatic biological concepts and helped me to see biology with new eyes. So God answered my prayer, which I prayed when I first came to the Institute, that God give me people. I am a small man from Finland, but you are a powerful God, you can change lives. Later, Roland Waldner was a student of mine, and he wanted to make a doctoral thesis with me. And I said, I have to think about that, because you are the laziest student I've ever met. If you want to work in my team, you really have to work hard. He said he takes some time. He went to the Swiss mountains to think it over, came back and says, yes, I want to learn to work hard. Roland made his doctoral thesis later. He dedicated his doctoral thesis, you can see, with love to Matti. And he also had now Bible verses from Romans 11 as dedication. And then he mentioned in his work, I thank my friend Dr. Matti Leisolas for his guidance, for his care and the encouragement. I appreciate the way he always took time for my requests. And I enjoyed to have him as an excellent teacher who helped me not only to become a better scientist, but also to become a better human being by introducing me the ancient and exciting secrets of God. So Roland Waldner one of my students became a Christian, and later his wife also. Then came Andreas Moheim, a student of mine again. And he wanted to make doctoral thesis. He came from the organic chemistry laboratory, and when we first have coffee break, I asked him, how on earth do you decide what is right and wrong, what is good or bad? And he was thinking for a while, and he said, every man decides for himself. And I asked him whether Adolf Hitler could decide for himself what is right and wrong. He went away and came next day and said he has an answer to my question. All those who limit the other person's capabilities to decide for themselves are doing wrong. And I said, what are you doing now more anything else but limiting Adolf Hitler's possibility to decide for himself? And he was a little bit confused, and for 6 months we were discussing about the problem of right or wrong, how it is impossible to decide what is right or wrong if there are no absolute standards for anything. If everything is relative, every man is for himself. And Andreas became a Christian. And he, in his doctoral thesis, which is here, says that, dear Matti, without your big help the thesis would not exist. Moreover, without you, my life would still be meaningless. Thank you for showing me that Jesus lives. This has revolutionized my life. Andreas became a Christian, and his wife is also a Christian. So God was answering my prayers. Please stay in science. I can use you here. Then came Stefan Hammerli, who also made a doctoral thesis in my team, who came from a Christian home, who was very skeptical about us Christians in the team. But in his doctoral thesis he writes, for Matti, my teacher in science and other more important topics. God bless you, Stefan. So these were some of my experiences in Switzerland, and God started to give me people who took his word, Bible, seriously. So even if there was opposition, even if Professor Fichter was angry, 6 of the doctoral students or scientists joined Bible study groups over the years. My team published more than 30 scientific papers, and God really blessed the work. And I was more or less convinced that this is where he wants me to be. After these 7 years in Switzerland, Professor Fichter recommended me for Latzis Prize, which is a prize given for the most promising young scientists below 40 years of age annually. Latzis was a rich Greek family who gave this prize. It was a big money at that time. When I got a telephone call that you have won a Latzis Prize, I thought, okay, hopefully it's enough for the cup of coffee. It was actually enough to pay the basic structures of my future house. And it was not a small prize, because there were Nobel Prize winners in the audience, but the prize was given. I was really scared. What do I say? I was given 5 minutes time to thank thank somebody. And I spent some sleepless nights because I had asked God bless to my work, and I had told him that if he does that, I want always to give honor to him. So I decided in the evening that I will say that my work has been blessed. But then in front of these couple of hundred people, actually 2 of those I mentioned earlier had become a Christian during that week, on Monday and Wednesday, and now we were on Friday. And there in front of the people I decided, why not tell honestly what has happened? And I thanked my professor, I thanked my colleague, and I said that many years ago I prayed that if God blesses my work, I want to give honor to him. And I am sure you all agree that he has blessed. 200 heads nodded yes. And I said, so glory to him. And I went to sit on my place. I met one of the professors who got Nobel Prize for his work in molecular biology, who said that that was great. I met an American professor who had a notebook written with red pencil, glory to God. He showed that to me. And within the next few days I had feedback from all around the world about my 5-minute speech. And I had been so afraid to say anything to glorify God, and when I did that, people were talking about it. Unbelievable. And the young Christians were of course very much motivated that I had the courage to give glory to God. I told them that I was really afraid to do that. So you could say that my career in Switzerland ended with Lats's Prize, with several of my colleagues becoming a Christian, and God giving us a unique experience of be brave, I am for you. Then we came back to Finland. That was 1988. I was 9 years as a research director in a big Finnish food and biotech company. I had to keep low profile there. I couldn't more or less spoil the reputation of the company by being totally and completely open as a Christian research director. My boss actually told me when I arrived to the company that keep your mouth shut about this Christian business. God's humor was that he was thrown out and I was taken into his place. During those 9 years from 1988, we had Bible studies. We had one small group for teenagers. That's where one of my children became a Christian. We had a group for students where I was teaching students to think through their life through Bible. My wife had a Bible study group for old ladies. And then we had one more Bible study group for couples, which I called Miss Finland Bible Study Group, because 2 Miss Finlands and one of them was even Miss Universe was studying Bible with us. I calculated that time that I spent about 15 hours a week in Bible reading and studying and teaching. Friends were often telling me that now when you are in industry you don't have any more time for Bible studies, and I realized that you always have time for those things that you are interested in. The student Bible study group members wanted to make a film, and they went to the Finnish radio and television network and asked about financing, and the radio promised them finances, and they produced a film that is in English translation available in internet, Deep Waters of Evolution. And they actually interviewed me, they interviewed Professor Siegfried Scherer and some American professors for the film. I think it was a very good film, but the Finnish broadcasting company didn't have the courage to show it. They hesitated for 2 years before they showed that, and they put it on Good Friday to give the message that this is actually a religious program. There were some professors discussing about the film, but they never touched the arguments that we gave, that biology is information. Information must have an intelligent source, and evolution hasn't the answers. So after that, I went back to university as a professor of bioprocess engineering. I worked 6 years as a head of the department and 3 years as a dean of the faculty. Everybody knew me already as a Christian professor, and one of the first things after coming back to the academia was a book translation. My friend Professor Scherer and his colleagues had written a book, Evolution ein kritisches Lehrbuch, and I took the task and translated the book into Finnish. This is probably the hardest work I've ever done. It is from German to Finland. It's 320 pages. It's really small print and big book. I spent about 1,700 hours outside my job during 1 year to do the translation. I had some people to help me with terminology and details, and when the book came out, it was quickly sold more than 3,000 copies. It was criticized in the major newspaper, and the criticism basically says that the book has the appearance of science, but it's really religious propaganda. But it has been widely read in Finland. It has encouraged Christians greatly. Another thing that we did together with some of my friends was a seminar, and we invited Professor Scherer from Munich, and I myself had a talk there, and the topic of the seminar was the worldview nature of evolutionary thinking. Everything was organized, people were invited, about 200 had been coming. When the rector or the president of the university told that the seminar cannot be held unless there is an opponent. So it was almost cancelled, but the opponent was found, a professor of philosophy, and the seminar got such a positive feedback that never ever any seminar I've had got so good feedback. Scherer's lectures and slides were excellent. My talk was accepted very well and so on. But it caused a little bit storm in university circles among professors. And the rector said that if this kind of seminars are organized in future, there must be opposing views also. So about 4 or 5 years ago, we decided to make a seminar where we have opposing parties. I invited Professor Paul Nelson and Richard Sternberg as intelligent design representatives for the seminar, and 2 leading evolutionary biologists in Finland to discuss and talk and have these seminars and speeches over 2 days. Again, everything was organized, leaflets were printed, teachers were invited. When a huge noise among the professors of Helsinki University started, and some of the most loud voices demanded that the seminar must be cancelled. And under the pressure, the president of the university cancelled the seminar, saying that this is not really good for the Helsinki University. So I went to my own president of the technical university, explained the situation, said that the American scientists are already on their way, and he gave me permission to have the seminar in my university. So it was organized. But students who were against it started to collect names, and they collected more than 200 names that the seminar must be cancelled. But my rector was an honest, clear-thinking man, and he didn't allow these petitions to influence his decision. So the seminar was held. A lot of people came, even when it was on Friday evening and with short notice. The local newspaper came, attacked the whole thing and said that Helsinki University of Technology wants to bring God to its teaching procedures. The funny thing is that Nelson nor Sternberg never mentioned God in their presentation. They only talk about the design behind the nature, behind the genetics and so on. So I wrote a letter to the newspaper which was published and explained the situation. But the professors in my university started to discuss in their email list. Some of them said that my behavior had insulted them and so on, and this is disgrace for the university and the reputation goes with this. But then started some voices say that the reputation goes nowhere. Universities should be places where things are openly discussed. And again, I saw how the enemy attacks. Because of the seminar, Finnish Skeptic Society decided to give the annual nonsense prize to my laboratory. My of course students got angry when they heard about that. So these were some experiences after coming back to Finland. People wanted me to write a book about my experiences, so I spent some time and wrote a book which says that in the wonderland of evolutionary world. This book has been sold now in 4 editions over the last 10 years. It was translated first into German language and then American language. It came out as book Heretic, and it has been now translated in Polish and Arabic also. I especially want to say that Christians have been hugely motivated by the experiences that I have had with Jesus in my Christian walk as a scientist in secular world. Another and final thing I want to mention is that I met a Croatian scientist, Dr. Branko Kosulic, with whom we analyzed all the scientific papers of Nobel Prize winner Jack Szostak, who claimed that chance reaction can produce biological information. And we showed that his conclusions were totally incorrect. And Dr. Kosulic wrote then a book. He made probably about 10 years of study for that book, The Essence of Biological Species, which is now available in English language. I studied 2 years of his book and wrote a book, a summary of that, and this book title is Darwin Erred, Did Einstein Also? and the book has been now out for a month. It's a summary of Kosulet's book. So even over 30 years after my Swiss experience, the time still bears fruit. Kosulet is a fervent anti-Darwinian creation, excellent scientist and thinker. I think this is where I finish. I've been now retired about 10 years already. I have dedicated my life to Christ, and I want to go on till the end with Him. And I want to emphasize, don't be afraid. The world has no answers. And even when you are afraid, don't let that influence your behavior, because God is with you. And don't forget, read Bible daily. That is the source that God uses to give us strength, give us guidance, to give us hope. All the best to you and your life in His name.